Y'all want to hear a giant secret that I ain't never told nobody? Shh. I prefer a 4AG and an AE86 over a K24. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, that's coming from you, the K24 and the AE86 guy. So if that's the case, why don't you just throw a 4AG in it and stop wasting everybody's time? Well, you would be right, except this isn't 10, 15 plus years ago. Let's get into it. So, about 10, 15 years ago, you could easily throw a 4AG, a 20 valve into this thing. But right now, let's just stick with the 4AG 16 valve, right? You could easily throw them into this thing because parts were everywhere. Everybody had them. So you could easily find a 4AG motor if you wanted to piece it together. You could easily find a 4AG motor for just a couple $100, say $300-$400. Then you could find a trans, a GTS T50 for another $300-$400. Then you could get a GTS rear end LSD, probably on the high side of $1,000. And you know, the harnesses, the engine harnesses were still easy. The dash harnesses, the body harnesses, everything was still around and still available, and you could get it relatively cheap, relatively easy. So of course that was the option. But my guy, we in 2020, so now in 2026, you got people that are selling full GTS swaps, full 4AG swaps, everything included, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. There are two on the 8.6 groups right now that are for sale. One is for $7,500 full front to back. The other one is for $45,000, but the motor needs to be completely redone, and the wiring harness looks like a rat literally had a feast on it. But let's say, for the sake of argument, you want to piece it together. I don't recommend you do that because that's what me and my dad are doing, and that's what's taking so long at his GTS. But let's talk about it. So nowadays, you can get a 4AG long block, which I believe is just the head and the block, from anywhere between $500 if it needs a complete rebuild to say $1,000 for one that probably you just need to take the head off and send it to a machine shop. So let's call it $1,000. Now you gotta find a GTS T50 trans, which isn't much more different than an SR5 T50. You don't even have to use a GTS T50, but a lot of people choose to. So that's gonna run you $700 right there. You're gonna need a drive shaft. A drive shaft is no big deal. You can either find one or you go ahead and get you a one-piece made. That ain't no big deal. That rear end though, that rear end is gonna cost you $2,500 to $3,000, and it's still gonna need a rebuild as soon as you buy it. And that's just the core drivetrain. We haven't even got into the engine harness, the dash harness, the body harness, and that's not even including if you're SR5 converting your 8.6 or if it's an actual GTS, because if it's an SR5, that also means you got to find a GTS fuel tank. That also means you need to find the GTS fuel hanger that holds the fuel pump. Like, man, the prices are insane. And then you still got to get GTS fuel lines. You still got to get all this different stuff. And you still not even close, my boy. So let's price it out, right? Let's start with the engine harness. Good luck. I'm not gonna lie, especially if you got a Zenki, good luck. But let's say you got a Kuki, which aren't that much easier, but you can find them. Let's say you anywhere from $7,000 to $1,000. So let's say you got lucky, $700 per engine harness. Now you gotta find a dash harness. Good luck. Dash harnesses for GTSs are completely hard to find. More Zenki than Kuki, but Kuki ain't easy to find either. So let's say you got lucky and you found somebody who would let it go for $700. You also need a body harness. So let's say you got really lucky, you got a horseshoe up your ass, and let's say that he's selling the dash and the body harness. So now that's $700 for the dash harness. Let's say he charges you another $300 for the body harness. Let's say you got really lucky. So now you got $1,000 in just the dash and body harness, plus what you said for the engine harness. So right now, just based off of those last prices, we are at a total of $5,900. We are at a total of $5,900 if you're paying today's crazy markup prices and you still are not even done. Let me show you something. So first of all, you just got a new trans, so you're gonna need a shifter. So let's go ahead and call that a good $300. So add $300 to $5,900. So now you're at $62. Oof, it's getting kind of pricey, but we're not even close to being done because now I got something to really show you. So like I said earlier, a long block, if I'm not mistaken, is head and block. You still need to go ahead and find a distributor that's going to work for you, which is not easy. Good luck. You still going to need to find a header that's going to work for you. Good luck. You still going to need the intake setup. Let's say you're going EFI. If you want to go ITBs, you might as well just go ahead and forget it because you're going to be in 8, 9, 10 grand. Let's say you want to go EFI. This stuff is not easy to find anymore. So let's say you're still gonna have to find you an intake setup. You're still gonna have to find you a fuel rail. You're still gonna have to find you, more than likely, a fuel pressure regulator. You're gonna need a fuel filter. You're gonna need an alternator. You're gonna need a water pump pulley, more than likely. You're more than likely probably gonna need a crank pulley. Let's say you don't. You're also gonna need to redo the timing belt. You're still gonna have to pay the shop whatever they're gonna charge you to fix the head, because more than likely you're gonna have to get the head fixed. So I mean, bro, you're adding up. So you're already into, honestly, I don't even know. You're probably into 7, 8s. Let's say you're at 75. Let's say you're at 75. and now you're at $7,500, $7,500. Let's just say, because I didn't want to do the math of the intake and all that other little miscellaneous stuff. Let's say you're at $7,500. Let's call it $8,000 at the absolute highest. Now you're $8,000 into an 8.6, and that's being generous, and you're gonna make 100, 112, 120 horsepower. Peppy for sure. Definitely the spirit of 8.6, but is it worth it? Now look, I'm not trying to shit on the 4AG. Like I told you in the beginning of this video, I love the 4AGs, and personally, I prefer a 4AG in an AE86 than me going to K24 route. But if you want me to be 100% honest with you, I also know that I'm gonna want a little bit more out of my car than that. So I'm going to K24 route because the 4AG is old. It's old technology. No matter how many times no matter how you say it, no matter how you cut it, it's old technology. That does not mean that old is not good. Please do not misconstrue my words. That does not mean that old is not good, because these are the souls of the 80s. Do not get me wrong. Old does not mean not good. But nowadays, old just means old. And at the end of the day, it's way too hard to find parts. Everything is way too expensive. And to be 100% honest with you, you could probably do the K-swap for just about the full amount of the swap of this and probably get a lot more power out of it, a lot more soul out of it, a lot more reliability out of it, just because of how readily available parts are. You can go into any AutoZone across the world and get anything you want for any K24 because they made fucking 100 of them. You can get anything you want pretty much at an AutoZone, and if you can't walk out with it that day, I guarantee you'll get it in 2 days. These, not so much. Also, keep in mind, I'm from Chicago and I moved to Florida. I know how the prices are in Chicago, and I now know how the prices are in Florida. It's very relative to where you're at, but I'm not gonna lie to you, there's no such thing as cheap parts anywhere else in the world. You're not gonna find a whole bunch of cheap parts just all across the world. You're gonna have to pay. So yeah, you might find some that are cheaper than others, but it's still gonna be the same core tax at the root of it. So that's all I'm gonna say. I said a lot. If you guys stick around, 4AG for life.